My dear friends, today I want to tell you about one of the most powerful stories ever told. It is the story of Andy Dufresne and Red from the Shawshank Redemption. This is not just a movie story. This is a story about hope, friendship, and the power of never giving up. This story teaches us lessons that can change our lives forever. Andy Dufresne was a banker. He was a quiet, intelligent man who lived a peaceful life. But one day, his whole world changed. He was accused of murdering his wife and her lover. Andy said he was innocent. But the court did not believe him. They sentenced him to life in prison. His life was destroyed in one moment. Imagine how Andy must have felt. One day he was free, successful, and respected. The next day he was in prison, wearing prisoner clothes, surrounded by criminals. Everything he had worked for was gone. His reputation was ruined. His freedom was taken away. His future looked hopeless. But this is where Andy's real story begins. This is where we learn the first great lesson. How you react to terrible situations defines who you really are. Andy could have become angry and bitter. He could have given up on life. He could have lost all hope. Many people in his situation would have done exactly that. Instead, Andy chose a different path. He chose to maintain his dignity. He chose to keep his hope alive. He chose to believe that somehow, someday, things would get better. This choice made all the difference in his life. When Andy arrived at Shawshank prison, he met Red. Red was an older prisoner who had been in jail for many years. Red had learned to survive in prison by giving up hope. He believed that hope was a dangerous thing. He thought hope would only make prisoners more miserable. Red had accepted his fate. He had stopped dreaming of freedom. He had stopped believing in better days. He had built walls around his heart to protect himself from disappointment. This is what many people do when life becomes too difficult. They give up hope to avoid getting hurt again. But Andy was different. Despite being in the worst situation possible, Andy never stopped hoping. He never stopped believing that he could be free again. He never stopped working towards a better future. This hope was not just wishful thinking. This hope gave him strength to survive each day. And his hope was active hope, not passive hope. He did not just sit in his cell wishing things would change. He took action every single day to improve his situation. He started teaching other prisoners. He helped the guards with their taxes. He built a library for the prison. He made himself valuable to everyone around him. Through his actions, Andy slowly gained respect and influence in the prison. The guards started treating him better. Other prisoners looked up to him. Even the warden began to depend on him for financial advice. Andy turned his knowledge and skills into power, even in the most powerless situation. This teaches us the second great lesson. You always have some power, even in the worst circumstances. You may not be able to control what happens to you, but you can always control how you respond. You can control your attitude. You can control your effort. You can control your character. Andy also understood the power of small, consistent actions. Every night for almost 20 years, Andy used a small rock hammer to dig through the wall of his cell. He worked slowly and patiently. He hid his work behind a poster. Nobody suspected what he was doing. Inch by inch, day by day, year by year, he carved his path to freedom. Most people want big changes to happen quickly. They get impatient when progress is slow. They give up when results do not come immediately. But Andy understood that great achievements come from small, consistent efforts over long periods of time. This is the third great lesson. Persistence and patience can overcome almost any obstacle. The wall that seemed impossible to break was actually breakable. It just required consistent effort over many years. Many goals in life are like this wall. They seem impossible at first, but they can be achieved through patient, persistent work. Andy's relationship with Red shows us the fourth great lesson, the power of true friendship. Red was initially skeptical of Andy. He did not understand why Andy remained hopeful. He thought Andy was naive and unrealistic. But slowly, Andy's hope began to influence Red. Andy never lectured Red about hope. He never forced his beliefs on anyone. Instead, he lived his hope every day through his actions. He showed kindness to other prisoners. He created beauty in an ugly place. He treated everyone with respect and dignity. His example was more powerful than any words. Red began to see that hope was not dangerous. He saw that hope could make life better, even in prison. He started to believe that maybe, just maybe, there could be a future beyond the prison walls. And his hope became contagious and began spreading to others. True friendship means helping others become better people. Andy helped Red rediscover hope. Red helped Andy survive the harsh realities of prison life. They supported each other through the darkest times. They shared their dreams and fears. They made each other stronger. The fifth great lesson comes from how Andy dealt with corruption and injustice. The warden at Shawshank was corrupt. He used Andy's financial skills to hide illegal money. Andy could have refused to help, but he realized that cooperation was his best strategy for survival. However, Andy was also secretly documenting all the warden's crimes. He was gathering evidence that would eventually expose the corruption. He was patient and smart. He played along while preparing for justice. This shows us that sometimes you must be strategic in fighting injustice. You do not always have to fight battles immediately. Sometimes the best approach is to prepare carefully and wait for the right moment. Andy waited almost 20 years before making his move. But when he finally acted, his plan was perfect. The sixth lesson is about the importance of keeping your mind active and growing, even in difficult circumstances. Andy never stopped learning. He read books constantly. He taught himself new skills. He helped build the prison library. He educated other prisoners. Many prisoners let their minds become dull and empty. They stopped thinking about the outside world. They stopped learning new things. They became institutionalized and dependent on prison life. Andy refused to let this happen to him. Andy kept his mind sharp and engaged. He prepared himself for life outside prison. He never stopped believing that he would need these skills again someday. This mental preparation was as important as his physical escape plan. The seventh lesson comes from the climax of the story. After almost 20 years, Andy finally escaped through the tunnel he had been digging. He crawled through sewage pipes to reach freedom. The next morning, the guards found his cell empty and the tunnel revealed. Andy's escape was not just physical, it was also symbolic. He had refused to let prison break his spirit. He had maintained his innocence and dignity for 20 years. He had never given up hope of proving his innocence and regaining his freedom. But Andy's escape was only the beginning of his real victory. He exposed the warden's corruption to the authorities. He sent evidence of all the crimes to newspapers and police. The warden was arrested and the corruption was revealed to the world. This teaches us that justice may be delayed, but it is not denied. Andy waited 20 years for justice, but it finally came. His patience and preparation paid off. The people who had wronged him were punished. His innocence was proven. The eighth lesson comes from Red's parole hearing. After many years, Red was finally granted parole. But he was scared to leave prison. Prison had become his home. The outside world seemed frightening and unfamiliar. This is called institutionalization. Many people become comfortable with their limitations. They get used to their problems. They become afraid of change, even positive change. They prefer familiar misery to unfamiliar possibility. Red almost became another victim of this psychological prison. But Red remembered Andy's words about hope. He remembered their friendship and the dreams they had shared. He found the courage to embrace freedom and start a new life. He overcame his fear and chose hope over security. The ninth lesson is about the power of keeping promises and maintaining loyalty. Before escaping, Andy had asked Red to visit a specific tree in a specific field if he ever got out of prison. Under that tree, Andy had left money and a letter for Red. Red could have easily ignored this request. He could have been bitter that Andy had escaped while he remained in prison. But Red was loyal to his friend. When he was finally paroled, he went to find the tree. There he found Andy's gift and an invitation to join him in freedom. True friendship survives separation and time. Andy never forgot Red, even after gaining his freedom. Red remained loyal to Andy, even during difficult times. Their friendship was built on mutual respect, shared struggles, and genuine care for each other's well-being. The 10th lesson comes from the ending of the story. Red traveled to Mexico to reunite with Andy. He found his friend living peacefully by the ocean, working on an old boat. They embraced like brothers, finally free to enjoy their friendship without the walls of prison around them. This beautiful ending shows us that hope, persistence, and friendship can overcome even the most impossible circumstances. Andy and Red both achieved their dreams of freedom. But more importantly, they achieved something even more valuable. They maintained their humanity in an inhumane place. The story of Shawshank Redemption teaches us that external circumstances do not have to determine internal conditions. You can be free in prison if you maintain hope and dignity. You can be imprisoned even in freedom if you give up hope and accept defeat. Hope is not just a feeling. Hope is a choice. Hope is a discipline. Hope is a daily decision to believe that tomorrow can be better than today. Hope requires courage because it makes you vulnerable to disappointment. But hope also gives you strength to endure present difficulties. The 11th lesson is about the importance of having a purpose bigger than yourself. Andy's purpose was not just to escape prison. His purpose was to prove his innocence, expose corruption, and help his fellow prisoners. This larger purpose gave meaning to his suffering and strength to his efforts. When you have a purpose bigger than your own comfort and convenience, you can endure almost anything. Purpose gives you reasons to keep going when everything seems hopeless. Purpose connects your daily actions to something meaningful and lasting. The 12th lesson is about the power of redemption. The word redemption means to be saved or rescued from something bad. In this story, both Andy and Red were redeemed. Andy was redeemed from false imprisonment. Red was redeemed from hopelessness and institutionalization. But their redemption was not just given to them. They earned it through their choices, actions, and character. Andy chose to maintain hope and dignity. Red chose to overcome fear and embrace change. Both men redeemed themselves through their own efforts. You too can redeem yourself from whatever negative situation you face. You can choose to change your mindset. You can choose to take positive actions. You can choose to become better rather than bitter. Redemption is always possible for those willing to work for it. The story also teaches us about the importance of patience in achieving justice. Andy waited 20 years to prove his innocence and expose corruption. This seems like a very long time. But his patience was rewarded with complete victory over his enemies. Sometimes justice is slow, but it is still worth pursuing. Sometimes good results take longer than we want, but they are still worth working towards. The most important victories in life often require the longest struggles. My dear friends, the story of Shawshank Redemption is more than entertainment. It is a guide for living with hope, dignity, and purpose, even in the most difficult circumstances. It shows us that no prison is stronger than the human spirit when that spirit refuses to be broken. Whatever challenges you face in your life, remember Andy and Red. Remember that hope is always possible. Remember that friendship can sustain you through anything. Remember that persistence can overcome any obstacle. Remember that redemption is always available to those who choose it. Your current situation is not your final destination. Your present difficulties are not permanent. Your past mistakes do not define your future possibilities. Like Andy and Red, you can choose hope over despair, friendship over isolation, and freedom over fear. The prison walls in your life may be real, but they are not unbreakable. With hope, patience, friendship, and persistent effort, you can dig your own tunnel to freedom. You can write your own story of redemption. Never give up hope. Never stop believing in better days. Never forget the power of true friendship. Your freedom is waiting for you, just beyond the walls of your current circumstances. Get busy living or get busy dying. The choice is always yours.